We try to, use Connecticut companies as our suppliers. I mean, there's a huge advantage in doing that, right? And also, I think there's some strategic, customers within the state of Connecticut.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari Santiago. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. I'm really excited for our guest today, Bill Hazard from Novo Precision in Bristol. Bill has a really interesting route to getting into manufacturing. I think it's going to be a story we're all going to really enjoy. Bill, thank you so much for coming on today.
Great to be here.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast. So, we start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So we're pretty diverse. I bought this company about 6 years ago, which had its roots in wire form and actually engineering and building equipment to process wire. We've expanded quite a bit. So what we have is what we call wire, tube, and cable on one side of the street. So we can either make a product for a customer or we can make a turnkey piece of equipment for them to make the product themselves. And then the other side of the street, we have machining and assembly, which are totally new ventures for us and are actually two of our biggest products right now. So
that's the what?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what's the why?
Why, as far as
why do you guys make what you make? What got you, I guess who's the end customer?
Yeah.
Why do you make it?
Really, what we say, right, is our mission is to simply solve our customer's problem, right? So we started with the core of the wire processing, and we were able to venture into a lot of different similar products, and we were able to use this foundation to build upon what we were doing before. So we have we have a very unique capability as a company. So we have the ability, what we call design, build, operate, and improve. So we have a strong engineering group, which allows us to design products. We're totally vertically integrated, where we can build pretty much anything from production cells to equipment to whatever's needed to make the product. We have a very strong operations team, core competency in Toyota production system and operating our business. And then we actually have just this year added our Kaizen team. So we have a internal consulting team, which we've always done continuous improvement, but allows us to accelerate our internal improvement. And ultimately, we're going to build upon that and market that externally as well.
So, I mean, Bill, lots of great stuff going on at Novo. Yeah. But listen, before we get into some of that, and I definitely want to talk about it because we got a lot of wood to chop here between kind of the two sides of the street, literal and differentiated. So I want to talk about that. Kaizen, continuous improvement, so absolutely critical in every business, really, but in manufacturing seems to be leading the way there. And the design, build, operate, and improve sort of philosophy. I'm really excited to talk about that too because I think in a high value market like Connecticut, right? We've got high talent people. We've got invested deeply in workforce. We're not gonna be the cheapest, but we could be the best. And solving customer problems is got to be how we get there. But before we get into all of that, I teased a little bit about your journey into manufacturing. Many of the people we talked to kind of grew up in it. Their parents were in it. They, went to the basement, saw their, dad working on a Bridgeport or their fifth generation in sort of in their blood. That really isn't the case for you. And I think it's really interesting to talk about that. I'd love to get into it because there's a circuitous route many people take, but many people have found their way to manufacturing because it is so exciting. So let's just talk about that. So talk about your journey. How'd you get here?
That was not my path.
No.
Right. So my father was a lawyer in Hartford, business lawyer. I went to school and ended up going into engineering. Right. So I had that background. Came out of school, no idea what I wanted to do. Ended up at Arthur Andersen here in Hartford. Got to work in a whole variety of industries: healthcare, finance, operations, systems. Got onto a manufacturing operations project, which was in Kingston, Jamaica, doubling the capacity of General Cigar. Loved manufacturing, kind of the hands-on, could touch it, feel it, do it.
Having never seen it before, right? I mean, growing up, your dad's an attorney, which mine was
Yes.
too. Business attorney in Hartford. We had similar backgrounds there. You'd never seen it before. Just Arthur Andersen Consulting, now Accenture, just put you on this project. Bang, there you are.
Correct. And just being able to touch it, feel it, it was just, that's what I wanted to do. Kind of learned what I was going to learn at Arthur Andersen, because that wasn't really a focus of theirs. Ended up going to a Toyota production system group called Yomo Consulting, which is actually based out of Farmington and had a lot of senior Toyota members who were part of this, and got into operational consulting. So spent a lot of time spent a lot of time with Whirlpool. The company was actually formed to support Alcoa. So spent time with Whirlpool, Dell, Harley Davidson, a lot of automotive clients, got to travel all over the world, basically advising companies on operational improvement.
So really all about waste reduction, like process improvement, just really on that focus on the TPS, sort of like the Kaizen Toyota approach to manufacturing.
Correct. Yep. So we had our sensei was Mr. Oba from Toyota. So that was great. Spent 9 years there, and then jumped to private equity, right? So got to run an internal improvement organization within a private equity company.
That was focused on manufacturing? Or?
Yes, it was manufacturing.
So just sort of like a PE roll-up of manufacturing concerns?
Correct.
In any particular vertical, or just?
It was in firearms.
Interesting.
Right. So we did a roll-up. I worked for Cerberus Capital, and then had a different role. They spun me off to running a couple of the companies, so
put your CEO hat on.
Exactly, totally different, and absolutely loved it. So what we do is we would buy these little companies. I would do the investment thesis, work with the team. I'd be responsible for the operational thesis with these companies. We'd buy them. I'd run them for a period of time. I'd hire my replacement. And then I ultimately became vice president of operations. So I had 8 companies around the country. And I just became passionate about these little companies. They were fun. They were quick. We could do things really fast and nimble. So after, there was a good time where it was, they were doing a consolidation. It made sense for me to do my own thing. So I'd always dreamed about doing my own thing. I had gotten to practice with all these companies. We had done great things building these teams, just coming up with a formula. How do we, when we buy a company, what do? We'd pull the dumpster up. We'd, basically clean the shop out. We'd put in our management cadence, which would be our daily Gemba walk, and we'd start driving improvement. And the teams would be engaged. It was just a fun type of atmosphere which we created in these companies. So after 8 years of doing that, it was time to do that on my own. So
what a great education, huh? I mean,
I got to practice on someone else's dime.
For sure. And I assume you got to see from all the companies you worked at, saw things that worked, saw things that didn't work.
Exactly.
Saw turnaround options that worked, saw turnaround options that didn't work.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and then we, bought Novo, which Novo means to make new, refresh, revive. It's a Latin word. We started this process. So it's hard to believe 6 years into it. So
goes by fast.
Yeah. We've grown. It's a very different company than where we started.
Yeah.
And we just, it's like a snowball. It's, we keep chugging along, and there's more opportunities, and we're doing more things than we've ever done.
So, something I never had a chance to talk about on the podcast before, but I think this is a good opportunity to bring it up, is let's say someone's out there listening to this and says, I'd love to do what Bill did. I'd love to get into manufacturing. I'd love to get my hands dirty, get a small business, help build it up. Like when you were thinking about doing your own thing, clearly you had, years of experience. How did you go about deciding which type of manufacturer to buy, how to go find it, how to evaluate it? Like talk a little bit about sort of the process of, okay, I'm ready to do this.
Yep.
And then how do you activate that vision? Like what was step one?
I actually looked for several years. It is very difficult to find manufacturing companies because it's not like a manufacturing company can put a for sale sign up, right? I mean, their customers would be like, what's going on? So the best way, which I found to get access to these companies was through accountants. So actually, the owner of this company had the same accountant that I had. And I would say this company, there was no overlap between what this company did and my experience. This would not be a likely company. I knew nothing about wire form, right? But, it was a small company, and it was just a point in my career where, my kids were in middle school. I had gotten on an airplane pretty much every week. I was running 8 companies, closest of which was Charlotte. It was just time to do it. So we just kind of jumped in and
so were you working for the PE firm?
Yes, I'd gone into the portfolio company at that point. So,
okay, so you were still doing you were still running those 8 APCs.
Yep.
And were they run like as one business or 8 different businesses?
The way we operationally would run them.
Yeah.
I would, we get together with my plant leaders every day. We were starting to do a lot of synergistic things between the companies. Like, okay, we have this extra piece of equipment here. We can move it here, right? We can make this for you. You can do this for us. So we were doing some creative, synergistic things between companies, which
So
was
did you
fun.
tell your accountant, hey, I'm like kind of in the market if you hear it? Like, how did that? You did?
Yes. Oh, I was meeting with everyone. So I had gotten together with a lot of different Hartford business people. I had met with business brokers. It's not a quick process. So
were there some false starts along the way?
There was a couple companies which I looked at, which didn't happen for one reason or another. But somehow this one, I looked at it actually, and then I passed on it, and then I came back to it like a year later, and we just kind of hammered out a deal. I mean, the old owner wanted to get out of the business. It was time for him. He was remote anyway, and I definitely wanted to get something to get started. So
when you made a list, when you started the process, you said this one was no industry you had experience in. How many of your mental checklist must-haves or whatever you started off with did Novo meet up front?
It was a stable business.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, it was, and I had access to it. It was almost, and I actually, looking back at it right now, there's so many things that I didn't appreciate of it, right? Like this ability to engineer and build equipment was just enormous because that's kind of like catapulted our growth. It was an interesting first year because 3 months after I bought the company, we got a note from our biggest customer, who was a 50% customer, large medical company, that they're putting all our products up for internet auction. Right. So that was an interesting first, and that was 3 months into it.
Holy cow.
So that was a wow. We were able to save the business, and actually we were 80% supplier. We got 100% of the business.
Oh, wow.
And that was through improvement. So we basically, like out of need, had to go in there and say, okay, we got to take cost out of this to be able to achieve this cost reduction is what they ultimately wanted. And we were able to do that.
Wow. That must have garnered you a lot of quick support, I would think, because nothing rallies a team together like a common challenge.
It did. I don't even think the employees on the floor were insulated from that.
Okay.
Right. Like our management team, it was like, holy cow, like this is a really big deal. Right. But going back to your question before of how many things did,
lined up with your original.
Yeah, probably none.
No.
Right. Well, it was local.
Right.
So I could drive there. right? It was
a manufacturer.
it was a manufacturer.
Right.
It had literally operated. It was the same size, same group of people that had operated there, for since 1981. So it was a stable company. We had a couple stable customers, right? And that was about it, right? So and
How
just
long did
seeing
the
the
process? How long
opportunity-
did the process take from like you re-engaged and then
Probably 3 months.
that's not too bad.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
There was definitely a will from the owner to sell and a want for me to jump in and do something, and just basically a confidence that, hey, we can do something here, right? It's not something I've ever done before, but we can do something with this business, because I had gotten all this practice in all these other companies. Like, I knew there was a huge opportunity for improvement in operating the business.
And so you saw a stable business that was doing well, but there was an obvious opportunity to turn well into great.
Yes.
So let me ask you this question. You bought the business. You probably did some like pro forma calculations of what you can improve. You probably had some, quick sort of SWOT analysis, and you thought about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you went in with this idea, I imagine, generally. And then 6 months later, I'm curious, or maybe now with 6 years of hindsight, how many of the things that you went in thinking were the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities and the threats, how many of those turned out to be right? I mean, clearly there was a lot of strengths and a lot of opportunity because the business is, more than doubled, or tripled nearly. But how much were you right or wrong on the way in? I'm just curious.
I kind of jumped into this thing. It was just with both feet.
Yeah.
You can always go through and do these pro formas on Excel, right?
Yeah,
it's like meaningless, right, to do, right? Because you have no idea once you get in there.
Right.
Right. I mean, so we got in there, we were in we got to save our biggest customer, right? I mean, that was the first thing, the obstacle we had to overcome.
Sure.
And then then it became a game of, okay, how are we going to grow this business?
Right.
Right. So it was almost, thinking back, it wasn't like I had a concrete plan, which was, hey, and we used to have these going in private equity.
Right.
Here's our first 100 days. This is what we're going to do.
Right.
It was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to get into this, kind of understand it a little bit, and we're going to start operationally improving. Right. And we're going to learn.
So you didn't do, which I often do see, right, is maybe it's not analysis paralysis, but I see people putting in a lot of effort to create all these elaborate plans that often don't materialize, because once you get in there, it's nothing like you thought in advance.
Yes, it's funny. I mean, we dug, one of the ththings which I quickly, because I was an operations guy, I was like, okay, sales is something I know nothing about, right? Like, I think I'm decent at it because people trust, and I won't lie to people, right? I mean, and that's kind of one of the best sales things in manufacturing. If people can trust you, it's really, really important. But I had no idea. So this is a pretty unique situation. We had one really big medical client, and then a whole bunch of other clients. So, we just got in there and started, ramping up the marketing, really thinking about what we wanted to get into, and it's funny how you evolve, right? And the best laid out plans, you have no idea, because you can say, hey, I want to grow 20% a year, and I want to cash out in X amount of time, and it's funny, you can grow 40% one year and 10% another year, and
it's not a straight line.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. So I think that's another interesting kind of topic is, you're not a sales guy, but in a small business like that, at least my experience, having operated a small business and known a lot of small business owners, usually the owner is generally a lead sort of salesperson. So what did you do to get, I mean, we didn't really talk about it too much, but, I think I'm kind of right. Novo was about, 20 people when you got there. I think it's 50 or 60.
Yeah, we're 50,
strong.
About 50 right now, trying to hire. We're hiring for several different positions right now.
And so I assume the top line kind of growth has mirrored the growth in personnel or exceeded it?
top line's much more significant than the number of personnel.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're doing all that. That means you must be marketing and selling something. So how'd you do it?
One of the things which we dug into was the whole SEO process. And I think that's a best practice which we have. So we had an external person who was doing our SEO. We had we had leads coming in. We were quoting. So we kind of dug into this process, about 6 months after I got there. I started getting together with the external person who was doing our marketing. And I was kind of like, okay, what's next? What's next? And it became really clear to me. He had no idea what was next. So we decided to bring our marketing in-house. And we set up metrics around it. We set up a management cadence around it. We still, every Monday, get together at 11 o'clock every morning with our team. And we just started digging into this. So now we're 5 years into this. We are 10 times more effective as far as what we're getting out of our marketing at half the cost of what we were spending. So it's, and this is something I knew nothing about. We just do experiments every week, right? So
that's how you learn, right?
Yep. I mean, there's so much in there from a marketing standpoint, and when someone tells me, they're coming up with a new web page, like, okay, that's like kindergarten. And actually it doesn't really help you because you need to know what your keywords are. You need to create content. What's important to the search engines is, when people search for something, right? We decided, hey, the people who are searching are going to be, purchasing people or engineers who need something, right? So we actually went we had 600 or 700 keywords, because the prior person who was running this, his idea was to throw a wide net. Well, we learned that was the opposite of what we should be doing. So that made our quality scores suck, right? So what we did is we actually curtailed it all the way down to the 100 most important keywords, right? And then we started focusing on building those up. Now we're back up to about 200 keywords. Of the 200 keywords, for basically for free search, for generic, we're in the top 3 on 97 on Google and like 120 on Bing. So these are all KPIs which we track. But it's really there's a whole formula there which we've kind of developed, and we've talked with a lot of people, and we're always trying to learn and improve that process. But we've got to a point now where we quote on 85% of the leads we get. We used to get 20 leads a month. Now we're between 150 and 200. We quote on 85% of those, and we close on 40 to 50% of those that we quote. So like from a search optimization, we are getting way more leads. We're getting the quality leads. We're closing on those leads. So it's a little bit it's a math game. It's more of a math game than a marketing creative game.
Your engineering brain is getting exercised in a really positive way. That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's great.
And for someone who's looking to do, it's amazing the things which we learn. Like Bing is a tremendous value. Like we pay $2.20 for a lead on a paid lead on Google, or we pay 80 cents on Bing. The content pages are really, really important. So your keywords, and we learned a formula of how many times you put your keyword in, how many times you need it in H1 titles. Like this really became a science, right? We knew how to get into other people's, web. We could look behind what their front was to kind of see what their keywords.
So you're not even just doing SEO, you're doing SEM too, because you're actually doing some paid, like some PPC, like relative, like search paid. Are you guys doing any like programmatic, like banner stuff, or it's really all just on sort of moving up the search stack?
When we initially started focusing on it, actually we did do a new web page, and the transition was we were really high paid. And then what we've done is we've really focused on our free search, so optimizing our free search. So now
invested
it's
a lot
about
more in the SEO rather, where you were heavy SEM before.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. I'm sorry, you were saying, so you were trying to convert to organic?
Yes. So the team spent a lot of time just getting our cost way down by optimizing our organic, which I think we're 50 or 60% organic now.
Wow.
40
Dude,
to
that's a
50%.
huge success story, Bill.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. And Bing is an interesting, just from a cost standpoint, tremendous amount of value.
And are you guys able to generate good number? I mean, so you're obviously paying like a third for a lead through Bing.
Correct.
But what percentage of your leads can you get through Bing versus what you're getting?
We are getting probably in that 25% range. Now, 80% of search is done on Google.
Right.
So, Google is there. You have to play the Google game. But Bing is a tremendous value for people who are, who really dig into this.
Wow.
Right. It's something we learned. And now we're getting more into we hired a part-time, technical writer, and we're getting much more into the LinkedIn and Facebook and, doing a lot there. So we are starting to see the benefits of that, where we're starting to get, 5% of our leads through those, through that mechanism.
Wow.
Which it's an interesting, we just, it's, an infinite game. Like if you think what you're going to do is put a new website in and you're done, like you're just you're not even on first base.
Not even on. Yeah, that's right. Right. That's like saying you're just buying the baseball bet gets you a 300 average. That's not how that works.
Yeah. So you need to invest that time in learning and doing experiments and
it sounds like you've applied sort of the TPS Kaizen approach in the marketing just as much as you were doing in the production.
We have. It's PDCA, it's Plan, Do, Check, Act, and we can do experiments all the time, right? On that.
And that's how we get better. Hey, I wanted to flip back. You mentioned something earlier on. I made some notes about your mission, right? The simply solve customers' problems and your focus on the design, build, operate, and improve.
Yep.
And I wonder if we could just maybe get into that, a little bit. You had talked about sort of adding the engineering. So I don't know where you want to start there, but simply solve customer problems as a mission for, a wire and tube business is interesting. So talk about that.
I think it's unique. As we look at companies, to do all of that is not something that you generally find in a 50-person company, right? So we have very strong engineering. So our biggest customer, we have an HVAC product, which we have which we worked really closely with a Connecticut company on. So they had a huge failure rate on the product which they were making. They went to one of our external salespeople and said, "Hey, do you know someone who's really focused on quality?" And our external salesperson was like, "You got to talk to Novo." So we started working with them 4 years ago on this product. And it's a very environmentally positive product. It basically helps to seal up air conditioning systems when there's a leak. So we were able to get together with them, work really closely because they're chemical people and we were mechanical people. We redesigned the product for them over the course of a year, launched that product for them, and now that's our biggest product. First year return rate was less than 0.001%.
Holy moly!
What
was it pre your
20%? I had massive recalls. So we really dug into, okay, how does this function? How does this work? This was a really difficult chemical to store, right? If it touches air, it starts to react. So the physical, we basically designed the delivery system for it. But that's currently our biggest product. It's for another local great Connecticut company. So it's a huge success for us. And we make a large quantity of these every day. And it quickly became our number one product.
That's exciting.
In our company. So yeah, that was
and that kind of fits right into that design, build,
correct.
Operate and
correct.
improve.
So we designed the product for them, which in all cases we don't need to do that. But then we designed the production system with how we're going to make it. We designed how are we going to guarantee quality does not escape. We set up, and it was actually the ramp was the craziest operational thing I've ever been part of. So we told the company, hey, we needed to know by the end of September. Well, Thanksgiving week, we got the formal order. So it was coming from their customer.
Yeah.
We got the formal order to produce. We were up and running in the middle of January. Right.
Wow.
So we had to get all the parts. It was 15 components we had to get. We had to build all the production lines. We had to build the quality systems to do this. And it was the craziest launch ever. So we had to chase because it has a huge amount of seasonality to the spring and summer. So we had to ramp up to, a huge quantity. We made a line, made another line. We were running 2 shifts with 3 lines. Our team members would go home. The plant manager and I would come back in at 10 o'clock at night, and we'd make parts till 5 in the morning. Right. It was, I'd call my staff. We'd go in on Sunday mornings and run parts from 6 o'clock in the morning till noon. I was driving. I probably put 50,000 miles on my car because we had we had suppliers all over the state who were making parts for this. And it would be like, okay, I got to, in my mind, I was just expediting parts everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just the craziest launch I've ever been in. But, it was fun. We got it launched. The first year, was a huge success. So now we're into year 3. But
a little bit more controlled at this point.
Yes.
No more Sunday morning 6 a.m. shifts for you.
Yes, I'm
You're back out of the production.
Yes, my daughter's working there now. This busy season.
Oh, nice.
But I'm out of that making parts.
That's exciting.
But that was fun. And that was, I live on this kind of strategic products, strategic customers. And that's an example of a customer like that is the type of customer we want. I mean, it's a great, the product wouldn't necessarily fit in it doesn't fit into wire form, but it's a really strategic product because it's a large product for us. We were able to do it really well. And we were able to do design. We actually worked really closely, our engineers with their engineers on redesigning this product, building the production system, operating the production system, and then driving improvement. Like every year we've made significant improvements in how we make it, continued to work on quality, and just kind of.
So how much of what you guys are doing, Bill, is like kind of still in that wire and tube thing? How much are you kind of getting into some other areas? Because, design, build, operate, improve could be anything.
It can, yes. So we've done some other projects. So, we have a machining product, which we're ramping up right now for the firearms market, which is really big and, is a large product. We actually did a startup came to us last year, which we knew a few people on the board, which was a very green product, and we threw our engineers and some of our tool makers into making a production system for this green product. They're still working on the chemistry of it, but it's very interesting. It was a Shark Tank product. Mark Cuban's invested in it, and we built a production system to make this product, and they're still refining it. They're having some troubles with the chemistry of it, but we are willing to get into different types of manufacturing products.
That's exciting. I mean, as you're kind of thinking about getting into this stuff, one of the things that came to my mind as you're talking is one of the things I hear over and over in manufacturing is how hard it is to find skilled labor.
Yep.
Right. quality engineers, quality tool makers. They're hard to find. It's basically a supply and demand thing, right? Demand's high, supply is hard to generate. So how are you, talk to me about your thoughts on that workforce dev and how you're able to continue to grow?
Yeah. So we're there's not an easy answer on this. So, there's not an abundance of really technical people. So fortunately, and this is one of the huge assets which we got in purchasing this company, was there was a good core of people already in place from a technical standpoint. We've been able to add some really good engineers, and we've been able to grow a bunch of our people. So it's a pretty dynamic environment where we're solving problems every day. And these, like we hired a young engineer out of Trinity. And he had come in, no real experience, right? Now he's, really contributing a whole bunch. He's got Kaizen events, which he's got improvement activities, which he's working on. He's got new products, which he's working on, and we've kind of been able to bring them up. We've been able to add, some tech. So it's kind of a hybrid of we've added some skill sets, and then we've been able to develop people, and there's some team members now. This is one of the things which I'm proud about. There's team members that were on the floor and were hourly people making a small amount of money when I started, right? And one of the team members is the team leader now of our HVAC product, right? And he was able, we made him, he went from team member to, I pulled him out and he was like my Kaizen team member to, we moved him into a material handling role. Then we bought the plant across the street. He did all the renovation on the building across the street himself, which was way more cost efficient for us to do. And then he became the team leader on the new HVAC product, which we launched. So a lot of these people have kind of stepped up and grown.
Isn't that so rewarding?
Yeah, yes, it's good.
It's fair. Listen, as a business owner myself, it's one of the things I love seeing the most is people grow. And now, having had a business for almost 20 years, having seen people who, literally started kind of right out of school, and now they have a house and they have their own kids, and they've grown their career and continue to grow it, and it's really rewarding.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we continue to do that. I mean, when I bought the company, I would say everyone there was undercompensated, right? I mean, it was just a status quo, try to break even business. And now we've grown quite a bit, but it's a game of, we're always investing in our people, right? Investing in our processes, investing in our infrastructure, and we've been able to do that every year.
How do you think about that, right? I mean, listen, no matter how well you're doing, resources are always limited, right?
Yes.
I mean, time, effort, money, all that's got limitations. So when you're thinking about investments, you bought a plant next door, how do you think about that? What's your kind of process, Bill, for thinking about what we're doing this year and how do we prioritize?
There's always sort of a prioritization list, which I have, right? And it's dynamic and changes. Like, I don't know, we have a whole bunch of things, different customers and products which are pending right now. Mm-hmm. So it moves a lot, but we've invested really heavily in quality. Whenever there's a decision, hey, do we buy this key or vision system or not? Or, we've always thrown down on quality. Just because, one rejection can cost us, a huge amount of money. And then it's just, kind of that we walk that line. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a gut feel.
I was going to say a little bit of gut.
But there's a little bit of a, hey, we know this, it's funny as we look ahead, I always say, hey, we can see 20% of what's ahead of us right now. And there's a huge amount of really exciting stuff which we have going on right now, and there's 80% we don't know. Someone could come to us with a huge product tomorrow, but it's kind of it's fun. I don't have to go to, I have
The
a
board,
very
yeah.
friendly board, which is made up of some friends.
Yeah.
But based on what we've done, we're in a pretty strong financial position, and we have just a really exciting, a bunch of products which are kind of in our pipeline right now, and then we have a huge number of improvement projects which are in our pipeline. We're always investing in,
and you didn't get here by accident, right? I mean, you took something that was okay, but you made it great, and it's been, I imagine, if it's anything I've ever seen before, right? It's one small step at a time, and you look back after a year, and it's a bit better. In 2 years, it's a bit better. In 3 years, it's a bit better. And next thing you know, 5 years have gone by, and you're like, oh shit, we've done a lot.
Yeah.
That's
it's
great.
like every month. I mean, there's major projects which we're working on. And I look at it like, man, I'm excited where we're going to be the end of this year.
Yeah,
right.
And
one of my things is I'm always like looking way ahead. Like I spend 99% of my time thinking ahead versus like reflecting on, remember where we were.
Yeah, dude.
So that's like a weakness
100%.
of mine. Like I need to, pat my team on the back because, they've done a heck of a job. So, I mean, we're, 4 to 5 times the size of where we started.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, kind of on a really nice trajectory of where we're going.
That's awesome. Listen, but we're about out of time. I want to switch to rapid fire. I want to ask you about the future. But before I do, something that came up when we were kind of in our prep chat that I did want to bring up because, listen, my thesis overall is that Connecticut needs to work together, right? We're Glastonbury isn't competing with New Britain, isn't competing with Bristol, isn't competing with Bloomfield as much as an economy and as a group. We need to compete against the world, right? And so we got to do it. We're going to be stronger if we do that together. That being said, I think it was really interesting that, we talked a little bit about how much you've appreciated being in Bristol. And I just think there's something I think we could learn from this. And so I just wonder if you could just really briefly talk about some of the quick things that you felt have been, wow, I came to Bristol, didn't know if you were going to stay there, but now you love it and you're a big booster. Just maybe talk a little bit about that because I think it'd be a good thing to share.
Yeah. I mean, I got to run companies all over the country, right? My opinion is both Connecticut and Bristol have been really good. So there's an economic development guy, Justin Malley in Bristol, who's incredibly proactive, right? Both mayors that have been there since I've been there have been incredibly proactive. Ken and Ellen is the new, or she's not new anymore. She's been there a while, but they're engaged. They're a phone call away. They're supportive. Bristol has some really interesting programs. And then Bristol works really well in facilitating communication with the state, right? So like the new building we got, an 80% abatement for 5 years, and both Bristol and the state have been really good. We've done a couple of the matching fund grants, which, from the state of Connecticut, which early on were like a really big deal in helping us grow, right? So, I mean, my opinion is that, the state and Bristol have been, very good in helping us so far.
And listen, it's paid off for Bristol. It's paid off for the state of Connecticut, and we need a lot more of that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think maybe we'll call Justin and just have him on because I think there's a path forward that there doesn't need to be conflict between business and government. In fact, I think we're both better together than we are, kind of fighting each other. So it's great to kind of see a path forward on that. So just real quick before we go, you talked about someone that looks into the future. What do you see for Novo in the years ahead?
We're going to continue to build, right? So it's just, we want to continue to partner with companies and have great relationships like the one I just explained with, and I do think, especially within Connecticut, there's some really interesting, like we try to, use Connecticut companies as our suppliers. I mean, there's a huge advantage in doing that, right? And also, I think there's some strategic, customers within the state of Connecticut. If we can, if we can work with them, that's fantastic, right? It just makes things a lot easier to be close. Like that example of working with the HVAC company. I mean, they're 10 minutes away I mean, that is an invaluable, right?
Yeah.
Right? Thing just to be able to meet with them. So
speed matters, quality matters, so proximity matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're going to get, as a business, we're going to continue to improve. I mean, just what we have on the docket for this year, I mean, are tremendous improvements from an operational level.
I love it.
So
that's awesome, Bill.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I look forward to tracking it and talking about it a lot more. You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right, man. Here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
Oh, Red Sox.
Nice. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
I'm going to go Starbucks. There's too many Dunkins.
Too many Dunkins?
There's probably too many Starbucks too. I'll go to Daybreak.
There you go. When you take time off, no COVID, staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destination would be better.
Where's your last exotic?
Oh, wow. It's funny.
Feels like kids, a million years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, I feel
it's been a while.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
I wish they'd make them in the US though.
Yeah, well,
that would be much better.
That would be much better. Sports car or SUV?
I had an SUV. Now I have a sports car. I did go with the Tesla because it's made in the US.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite business book?
I just finished Infinite Games, Simon Sinek, and I thought that was good. It gave very interesting perspective just in operating a business, so that it's an infinite game of it's played over a long period of time, and
the goal is to stay in it, right? Keep on playing.
Exactly.
If you could do anything, Bill, other than be the president of Novo Precision, and you had to, it could be anything in the whole world, but it had to be something else. It could be anything. No, money doesn't matter. It could do whatever you want. What would you do?
I was just talking with my VP of engineering this morning. I mean, I love what I do. Like, it's not going to work, right? Whether it's Saturday or Monday, it just doesn't matter to me. I did like being in private equity and running multiple companies. I thought that was fun because I had 8 companies all doing really good stuff. And I'd show up once a month and they had, that was a fun environment to be in. So I could see doing that. But growing my own business is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
What's something, Bill, that you learned early in your life or earlier in your career that you think helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
I don't know how early I learned it, but one big thing right now, and we're trying to hammer our mission, vision, values, is don't blame people. It's the rat hole that people go into all the time, and it just kills a culture. So you got to have a culture of no blame, focus on the solution.
I love that.
Right.
What's something that you learned later in your career, later in your life, that if you could go back and tell young Bill, and if he'd listen to you, it'd really make a positive impact on his life? What would that be?
Boy, that's a tough one. Don't blame people.
Back on the blame.
Right?
I do it for sure. Look at the mirror. Don't look out the window. Listen, yeah. Bill, it has been really pleasure having you on. Thanks for talking about Novo and your journey. It's been really great, and I look forward to continuing our conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a great thing for Connecticut manufacturing.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.